Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining us for today's session. Really excited to speak with two very accomplished individuals that will be sharing their perspective and their stories, and a very unique story of a new type of ABM, a transition from a classic motion of ABM to we call it ABM 2.0, for lack of a better term, or even buying group marketing. And just before we begin with all the intros, just wanted to say this isn't the typical kind of fairy tale story we are used to hearing in these kinds of webinars or podcasts where, we went in and we rocked it and everything was great and we're seeing these phenomenal results. This is actually a bit of a different take, where a checkpoint started in one place, reevaluated their position, and had to take a different direction to move forward. So it's a kind of a start, pause, pivot motion that we'll be discussing, which I think is super interesting and hopefully relevant to many people. But before that, I just wanted to welcome my co-hosts, Hillel and Greg. Thank you all for joining me.
Thank you,
Nice to
Avishai,
meet you.
for the invite. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we'll start off with a quick round of introductions. So Hillel leads SEO and ABM at Checkpoint. Hillel, you want to tell us a few words about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in the digital marketing for 14 years already. Started as like my first passion was SEO, search engine optimization, and I'm leading the SEO initiative at Checkpoint for the last 5 years. And in the last 2 years, I've also expanded to all the area of the account-based marketing. My vision is to have a better collaboration with sales and marketing, and see at the end of the day that all the good marketing that we're doing is also we're seeing also the results and the fruits also on the sales side. And this was kind of what pushed me to explore this area, together with all the data information and all the things that you can do to be a really good marketeer, and what I call the next generation of marketing.
Yes, again, we've spoken before. You were kind enough to also attend and speak at one of our events. And I remember I was asking you something to share something personal about you. So I'll ask that again, if you don't mind sharing with the audience something personal that you like doing, a personal passion of yours.
So great. I love cooking. So this is kind of a hobby that expanded throughout the years. So anything that's related to food, and exploring new tastes, and a lot of cuisine. So this is like what I'm happy to do on my free time. So
Fantastic. Me too. So we need to do a session around that, I think, sometime in the
for
future.
sure, I think it's gonna be very interesting indeed.
Fantastic. Thank you. Greg.
Thanks, Avishai. Hey guys. So I have been in the marketing sales game for 15 years now. I've worked agency side, consultancy side, and run client side marketing functions, doing everything from RevOps to full CRM and lifecycle management, through to building products for new startups. So worn many hats over a decently long career. And at Infuse, I head up strategic growth. So I actually run a sales team as well as work on a number of different commercial and productizations of new products that we look to take to market. And it's been a good 3 years. A personal fact about me, just to add into the mix. So yeah, early on in my career, actually just out of uni, I thought I was going to be a musician. So we were on the verge of getting signed to Universal, actually. And then the deal went bad and dreams were dashed. But still continue to play a lot of guitar and perform in a few bands. So love the
Oh,
music a lot.
wow. Fantastic. We also need a session, right? So we're gonna test
There we
those
go.
guitars in the back.
There we go. Jam it up.
Fantastic. Cool, guys. Oh, super great. So just to give a bit of context before we jump into the main topic, I think Hila, if you mind sharing a few words about just Checkpoint in general. I want to talk about Infuse and Trend Demon, and then we're gonna dive right in.
Yeah, for sure. So Checkpoint is it's not a soccer team. It's a cybersecurity company. Was established in like 32 years ago, and providing a comprehensive range of security products. Like the main thing is network security, but we're also really strong on the cloud security, endpoint protection, mobile security management, and everything that's related to the security for mainly for enterprises and larger enterprises, but also small and medium companies. But the main are larger enterprise and enterprises.
Fantastic.
Cool. So Infuse, so we're a full funnel brand to demand partner. We cover everything from syndication to running full brand campaigns, leveraging targeted display through to a full content creation arm. We work primarily with tech businesses, but we cross multiple different verticals. In what we provide, we're a team of over 1,000 these days across the globe, and have seen a lot of success in helping businesses, particularly transition from running standalone programs to always-on programs through some sophisticated maturity frameworks and brand-to-demand frameworks.
Fantastic. And just to note that Checkpoint is both a customer of Infuse and Trend Demon. Infuse, great partners. We're doing joint events together. If it's in the UK and Europe, in the States now. So thank you for being a customer, being a partner. Quick note about Trend Demon. We are a website experience optimization platform for B2B and ABM marketeers, essentially helping streamline buyer journeys, helping our buyers find the relevant content, see the relevant messages automatically, with a very tight and deep connection to business outcomes. So we are integrated with the marketing automation, the CRM, to be able to understand which journeys have been successful and how we can improve future journeys based on those learnings. From a tech standpoint, we're able to consolidate several different platforms and kind of connect them under one roof. And we've been working with Checkpoint for a few years, and happy to be part of their GTM and B2B and ABM journey. All right. So without further ado, so why are we even talking about this? Why did we feel that this topic is something that's worth sharing, and this story is something that's worth sharing? And what are some data points that we've been witnessing for the past year and a half, almost 2 years, that we thought should merit, marketers to pause, think, and reevaluate kind of where things are heading. And because we love data and we look at data, so we're looking at hundreds of B2B websites. We're looking at the engagement of ICPs, of target accounts on those websites. And what we've been witnessing, and this is just from the beginning of the year, is this declining trend in companies' engagement, which means the percentage of companies that are visiting, that are actually reading our content, that are engaging with the website in a meaningful way from an account level perspective. We're seeing this trend. And Hila, actually, I wanted to ask you, as somebody who also wears the SEO hat, I know there's a lot of discussion today about also the declining traffic to websites because of Gen AI, because people are now more relying on LLMs. How are you seeing this? Is this a trend that you've been seeing yourself? Do you have another take on it?
Yeah, so a really good point that you brought up, Vishai. So yeah, I think that across all the industry, there is a decline, decrease in traffic to websites. A lot of users are either using generative AI as their default way to search for information, and not the classic search engines anymore. So a lot of people are using, for example, ChatGPT or Perplexity as their default to any information. And sometimes they get the information over there and that's it. They won't continue to the next journey. They might visit if they're looking for information and they found it, that's it. But we are seeing a trend that more focusing on the brand, meaning that if you know and you're a known brand and you know to teach all of the capabilities of your product or solution, and the LLM knows it. So once you're going to search for it, so I'm looking for a B2B a tool that can help me personalize and do automated thing, and I will ask the ChatGPT, for example, this kind of prompt. So most likely he will give me Trendemon as one of my options. So here is how do I get like the brand lift? So maybe top of funnel traffic awareness traffic won't come anymore to the website, but it doesn't mean that the conversion rate will decrease. The other way around. Sometimes when users come to your website, they are more engaged already. They already know what they're looking for, and then they just come to complete the journey. So, but this is the trend that we are seeing, I think, all across the industries, and we're now working on making the adjustment and the shift in our strategy to align also to make sure we are visible also on the generative AI tools.
So as a follow-up to that, I think a lot of people are probably curious as to what they can do, what they should be doing, maybe differently than they maybe have approached it from an SEO perspective. So as you're going to a geo perspective, how do you teach the models and give them the correct, like you said, brand image and understanding of what and who Checkpoint is, what are the strengths about it? So how do you go about in that to teach those models?
So great question. So at the end of the day, we need to remember that also the generative AI needs data sources. And our goal is to identify what are the leading data sources that this generative AI are using to provide the answer to any kind of prompt or question that you're going to answer them. And from there, go to the source and try to influence from there. And of course, your website is a no-brainer. You need to do the optimization. You need to make your content more visible, to go to drill down to every product and help the engine crawl and understand better what you're selling and why. But it's not only that. You can also go to other places that is not on your website. For example, publishers or review platforms or even social networks such as Reddit and LinkedIn. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. Also affiliates, it's also a good place, and many more. Wikipedia. So you need to be all around. So if the classic SEO was like there were like 3 or 4 main things that you needed to take care of. So we take all of these 4 things and we're adding to them more channels, more areas that we want to expand to. It's kind of an evolution of the SEO. And I think this is very exciting. And we're just getting started. So I believe it will change and evolve. But at the moment, we already created a good strategy and we're starting to see some initial results. And this is very exciting.
Yeah, Abhishai, just to add to that really quickly, I think we talked about, the dark funnel for a long time now, but I think with Gen AI and just AI in general, rather, I think the dark funnel is actually becoming darker. So like more and more stuff's actually being researched before brands actually cotton onto it. So I think, to touch on Hilal's point, I think like there's a holistic need to look at the way that your brand is perceived in market and to identify all of the clear, destination points and touch points that you have with customers. And there's this real shift that we've seen to like focusing on value. Not that value was, not there in the first place. It's just been enhanced. So, value for individual entities that buy from Checkpoint as an example. So typical buyers, influencers, buying groups, how Checkpoint is relevant to particular verticals, and then also then having that presence in all of the right places, like your Reddits and within communities as well. So I think, yeah, that's the shift. Certainly, we've seen that with some of our other clients as well. The shift towards looking at brand and needing to drive much more preference over a longer period of time, knowing that 84% of the time, if you're early into market and visible as a brand, you 84% of the time win the deal when it comes to sort of vendor versus vendor comparison. So certainly there's like a pivot point at the moment.
Yeah, I think that we're about that shift. What we're seeing from the data perspective is an influx, a huge shift from search traffic to LLM-based traffic.
Yeah.
So we're actually seeing people coming a lot more from these models. And what we're thinking about is if and how those journeys are different. So by the fact that I'm coming from a model that gave me already a structured answer, I'm coming in with a different type of understanding than if I just clicked on a search link from a bar,
Exactly.
right? So, and we can infer based on, for example, where they landed, what is the type of baggage that they come in, right? We can also interrogate the model itself and how are you basically presenting us, and also be able to understand the let's say the perceptions that the people coming in from models will have, right?
Exactly.
All right. So I think that when we're talking about the ways to mitigate that, and everything can be boiled down if we're trying to really oversimplify things. At the end of the day, when we're talking about, even if it's the acquisition side or even if it's the retention expansion side, is what is that cost of generating those either new dollars or retention dollars or expansion models and upsell? And how are we mitigating that increase in CAC that we've been seeing that, again, is the result of this decreasing in attention, right? So the price we're paying for less traffic with less attention is we need to pay more. We need to be more effective. We need to bring more people. So there is that economic pressure that I think a lot of companies are feeling and witnessing, and we're going to be talking about that in today's session as well. One interesting way to mitigate that is really with some of those approaches that Hillel and the motions that Greg are also doing with Infuse, and being relevant, being contextual, and providing value, right? And how do we do this at scale, right? Because these are really good ideals to look up to. But what I wanted to show here in this trend is that when done correctly, when done effectively, they can be very powerful at really reversing the tide from this decline in attention to actually being able to capture more and more attention over time and being relevant. So let's jump in. Hello, let me ask you if you can maybe walk us through, tell us a bit, maybe start from the go-to-market in general of Checkpoint, and then specifically, you mentioned 2 years ago, the transition into ABM, what that looked like from a motion perspective, from a stack perspective. So what did you do? How did it start?
Okay, so first of all, I mentioned earlier that the gap between sales and marketing, that marketing can do a lot of activities that at the end of the day, from several conversations we had with sales down the road, everybody say, hey, we're not seeing these leads that you're providing us. We don't know what you're talking about, or it's a sentence like that. And are you kidding, man? We just generated so many leads. So obviously there was a problem. It's like you're throwing the ball to your friend, but you not sure if he's gonna catch it or no. But okay, I threw the ball and that's it. My job is done. So we figured, okay, let's try to collaborate in a better way, in a way that everybody is accountable for mutual goal and try to work together based on things that we get, like intent and data and priority that we get from the field, from the sales, and together with the data that we provide as marketeers using different types of intent data. And together, let's think of a way that we can create a campaign, an ongoing campaign, hopefully, that will show us good results throughout time that also aligns with the sales, with what sales care about, and with their goals and sorry, I forgot the word.
The objectives of sales,
Objectives,
their
yeah,
KPIs.
KPIs and
Makes
objectives,
sense.
of course.
So you talked about alignment, an alignment issue, but before maybe we talk about the
Yeah,
alignment challenge.
So this was the challenge, and we so for that we started to build our tech stack. So first of all, we had Trendemon, of course, that we used also in the past. Before even we thought about ABM, we used it more for conversion rate optimization. We saw great results and figured, okay, this is working amazing. Let's do more of that. Let's take all the abilities that Trendemon has and maximize them as well. And we started to use 6sense, and we did the integration with Salesforce. We took it some time, but at the end of the day, the integration worked. And now we had like the 6sense as not as also intent tools, but also as an orchestration tool. And we had also other ABM tools as well, such as like the Drift chat and more, that helps us also for personalizations and other campaigns, and also sales, having also the sales tools as, such as the Salesloft and more. And okay, so we build the tech stack. Now we need to start working, and for that we starting initiating ABM campaigns together with sales. You had a question? Or do you want me to jump into what we started to do?
No, I think that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so what we've done basically is, first of all, we thought that especially for Checkpoint, marketing by industry, by vertical, is something that usually a Checkpoint used to do marketing per product, and we thought, okay, sales doesn't care about product; they care about their industry, about their vertical, about the pain point for a specific vertical. Let's do a shift. Let's talk only per industry for specific accounts that we care about and target them. And let's create all the content, everything that related to these verticals, together with, of course, sales input on that to make sure we're talking about exactly like the pain point that our buying journey care about. So what we started to do is, first of all, we identified that like the financial services sector is like the best place to start because there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of money, and Checkpoint really strong, had a really strong offering over there. As I mentioned earlier, we are focusing on large enterprises, and banks and insurance company are exactly the places we want to start. So we started, of course, mapping all the accounts together with sales, make sure we have, it was a combination, kind of 50-50 between prospects and existing customer. I know there are different types of ABM attitudes. Some say, let's do all on existing one, and the other way around say, let's focus only on prospects. So we've said, let's do hybrid. Let's do 50-50 and see what is working. And then from that, we will start shifting. The reason we also did 50-50 is because we got a lot of requests from sales that say, okay, I want to focus on specific account, but the leadership say, let's acquire new logos. We care about new logos. So it's kind of a gap that we try to mine. And we're starting mapping different types of pain points that's relevant for the financial sector. And for that, we worked with a lot of sales leader, with product marketing manager, with any SME on the company that can provide us information that at the end of the day will help us build a strategic content plan that's curated for this industry. And of course, not talk about Checkpoint product as the first thing, talk about their pain points, and how Checkpoint can help. And we got a really good positive feedback from the field, also from the field marketing. Everybody was really excited about it. And we created many assets, white papers, webinars, and we had a really nice plan working out. And we started launching it and throughout the playbooks that we created. And now, before you stopping me, we also did an intent analysis, not only by the feedback we got from field. We also used Sixth Sense intent and other intent tools that we've used to better understand exactly which type of accounts are in which stage in the funnel and what they care about. And for that, we started creating content to address that. And our vision is to provide the right content to the right person at the right time. So we created landing pages for that, different asset, and everything was for that. And not only that, we had 3 buying groups that we targeted. So we had kind of the senior technical, that can be like the CISO or Chief Information Security Officer or the CIO and all of that. We have what we call technical practitioners. It can be a security architect or even a compliance manager. And we also had like the econ buyers, more on the legal side, CFO, anything that at the end of the day need to approve it and purchase it. So we created also content for there. So if it's going to be technical, we will emphasize all the different capabilities of Checkpoint on the technical side. But if it's for the econ buyers, the content was more on like the prevention rate and how we comply with everything and the compliance, and think that they care more about that and help them convince, because they don't care about the bits and bytes, they care about the high level.
Perfect. So before we move on to the Black Swan event, I just wanted to kind of maybe follow on that journey. So basically, Checkpoint started kind of with that traditional lead-based approach, which you said caused this misalignment, right? That said, okay, just pushing leads is not driving the business outcomes that we want. I think that's something that has motivated a lot of organizations to do that transition into ABM. And then from that point, you said, okay, we need to change our perspective from pushing a product to understanding an industry, understanding a buyer, and creating that content for them first and foremost. And for that, I actually also need sales input, right? I also need to converse with sales to get their insights on what those customers care about, to be able to build a content foundation, build a technological foundation. So of signals, technologies, activation, and all of that. And then kind of move into rollout. So it looks like you've done all the right things, right? Everything was like playbook, classic. I mean, you were getting the right stuff with the right tools, with the right motion. And then what happened?
So first of all, we went live. The campaign was live for a while, and we had different acquisition channels. We used LinkedIn, we used content syndication with Infuse, and we also did for inbound traffic what we call website experience. So anyone from this segment who landed on Checkpoint asset would immediately see a promotion or an engagement unit by Trendemon. So everything was, as you mentioned, was a good playbook. But we had some issues, as all campaigns sometimes, especially when we just started. The cost per lead was really high at the beginning, because at start we focused more on LinkedIn, which is the CPL is higher traditionally than, for example, content syndication. And it took us time to lower the CPL, at least a quarter, and we did a lot of optimization. But at the end of the day, the management saw these results and said, okay, this is very pricey, this activity. Does it worth it? Yes or no? And we said, okay, let's give it a time. Sometimes it takes time for things to nurture, and we really believe in this process that we can show the value throughout time, because it's not a campaign that you turn on and off and that's it. It's an ongoing process that you need to do for a year, not for a quarter. So we got this mandate, and we successfully were able to increase the leads and lower the CPL to below even the target that we aimed at first place, and we overpassed our leads goal. The problem was that there was a shift in management at Checkpoint, and then because of that, from the sales perspective, they told to us, okay, we need to stop. We're not sure we're capable to doing that right now. A new year, new targets, new leadership. Let's put it on pause. And also from the marketing side, we said, okay, if there was no collaboration from sales, it doesn't we don't want to invest so much money and effort, and no one will capture and deal with this lead. So we might wait for a bit and maybe change a strategy to something more efficient down the road that can help us even drive good results.
So it seems like, I'm sure it was probably a shock to the system, right, after all this investment to say, and especially after starting to see those results. And you're mentioning that, you started this motion, you've seen effectiveness, but then there was a push for efficiency, right? To say, okay, we understand this motion is effective, but we need to be more economically efficient, cost effective, and not just business effective to that extent. And then that forced you to rethink this entire strategy, or the path forward.
Exactly. So first of all, as I mentioned, we started with like 50% prospect and 50% existing customers. So acquiring prospect was really hard, and this is what caused really high CPL. So we figured, okay, let's try to maximize the existing customers. We have a good database. We can reach out to them throughout email campaigns, throughout Trendemon. Works with the closer with sales. Maybe we can show good results in lower costs. And this is kind of the shift that we thought about, maybe moving to smaller audience or even more targeted, that we already have an engagement with them. It's going to be easier to, and not starting from scratch, trying to teach, okay, we're Checkpoint, and this is a really, really long journey. Sometimes sales cycle can be 2 years, even 3. And no one has the patience to wait 3 years to say, okay, you see, the leads that came 3 years ago, this was part of the ABM campaign.
So it was basically, as you were mentioning, not stopping everything, but finding those, I don't want to say quicker wins, but those cost-effective wins that the purpose of them was to build confidence that this motion can be done, but we may need to take a step back and do things maybe in smaller bites and start building confidence before we kind of roll out maybe in a broader way, right?
Definitely. I think this was one of the learnings. Let's start off small and then expand. Show success, get everything working, and if you create a good workflow and a good process, try to replicate it to other places even in the company, because there are sometimes different business units, different sales teams in the organization. And if you're going to find a good sales team that you can collaborate with and show success, then you can, say, this is a case study. We succeeded here. There's no reason we cannot succeed over there. So, and this is like the new approach that we adopted.
That's a great.
I like the realness of it. I think so often as marketers we see, there's the big blue sky and all the sexy stuff. And like I think what's interesting about Checkpoint Story is it's a very real and honest view of actually how things can roll out and how when you guys took an approach which was, I'd call it like whole hog. So you kind of did everything. You had all the different segments and targets. You got different technology. There's decent alignment when it starts, and then some of the targeting starts to get called into question somewhat, and then you've got a number of other variables where leadership changes and shifts, and suddenly you're in a position where you've got to show actual efficiency and return right now. And so what's interesting is like to take a step back and reflect on it and then say, okay, well, where do we go from here? Well, the efficiency is actually in going from a hybrid net new and existing to pivot into existing. There's 40% likelihood like they will convert. Like in other words, you can cross sell or upsell existing customers. So like let's angle in there and let's really dig in there. But let's not look back on some of the content that we've created and just put it to bed. You guys created a lot of content split out by, different buying groups, and there's different personas in there and verticals. You've kind of said, okay, well, why don't we take some of what we've done there, but just shift the targeting a little bit more? So
Right.
let's take that content and actually somewhat tweak and finesse it a little bit more for existing customers. And like let's prove out that use case of ABM with those existing customers, which I think is just I think it's a really interesting story, actually. I think it's sometimes it's hard to kind of call a spade and say, hey, look, guys, we as a business, this is where we're at. We've got to make a change. What we've done hasn't really proved out as much as we would have liked. And sometimes I think, talking more broadly about some of the clients we work with, trying to show return to leadership within a very short period of time is very difficult. If it's like, show me it within 3 months and your buying cycle is 9 to 12, it's very difficult. And it also there's commentary on how budgets are set, the way that metrics get aligned to budgets within particular quarters or half years or years, depending on what you're doing. And also this movement from like program specific to kind of a more always on strategy. So I think, you as marketers are always trying to navigate all of these different challenges where there's a lot of pressure coming down from the top, with the way that things are structured and operationally set up. And like, you've got to kind of look at it and sort of make that pivot and make an honest call. And you guys have done that obviously very successfully.
So, Greg, I wanted to ask you about Infuse and your experience working with enterprises. First of all, how are you seeing this push, and are you seeing this push for cost efficiency? And what are the things that you would recommend thinking about when doing, if it's leveraging content and content syndication, to help align those unit economics with eventually the outcomes that we're all trying to get?
Yeah, I mean, look, Abhishek, I'd say it's a journey. I think we talk a lot about like two different layers of kind of running programs. Layer one is kind of your more business as usual. This is going to make sure that we hit all of our metrics. And swim lane two is around the sort of innovation layer and being able to introduce new technology or new strategic initiatives or new content in quite a measured way. We rely, very heavily on frameworks that we've put together and built. So like Hilal commented earlier on the sort of 6 sense piece, which I think is an interesting one, where you're in essence relying on intent data to basically define where accounts are in their journey and trying to build, the right sort of experience for them to meet them where they're at. I think those models are incredibly powerful the more data that you pump into them. So, if it's G2 data or trust radius or whatever it is, the more data you can pump into the models, the better they are, propensity ultimately. I think then it's a very measured approach as to how we look at trying to drive efficiency. Generally, what we try and do is sort of pick one or two stages to really focus in on first, build out the experience and some of the content to make sure that we can target accounts at the consideration stage with the appropriate tactics and channels. So, the content that you might sit on a microsite on your website where you drive traffic to will be very specific and tailored to that. And when it comes to the sort of syndication layer of things as well, there's like a mix also between that and display. Those are customers that are somewhat mid or earlier stage in their journey. It's about spending your budget efficiently, leveraging some targeted display, and then maybe early stage syndication, which could look like capturing leads that are engaging with particular white papers or webinars and starting to ask them some questions. I think there's like two component pieces to trying to paint a vivid picture of not only leads, but leads who actually ultimately form buying groups which roll up to accounts, is looking at a qualitative and quantitative lens. So the quant side says, how can we drive deep enough engagement over a period of time? So let's not just like get them to engage with an asset. Let's nurture them over a period of weeks. Let's roll that up and look at multiple leads from different departments or different groups, whether it's technical buyers or more legal or operational buyers. Let's roll that up, look at engagement, and then let's start to ask them some questions that we know will start to equip sales in a way that'll help them have a more constructive conversation. The other part is also, Hilal spoke a lot about alignment, and alignment continues to be the biggest challenge, I believe, in marketing and sales. As much as we try to solve it and say that we're trying to, it's very, very difficult to get that buy-in. And so one approach that we've at least tried to take is running workshops to try and align marketing and sales. We call them SDR workshops or BDR workshops, depending on, your company and naming. And that's basically to give them an idea of what are the programs that we're running, who are the individuals we're targeting, what sort of questions have we been asking them based on what you sales have helped us feed in to qualify them. If we're doing qualifying, if it's profiling, what sort of intelligence, what are your purchase drivers? I'm interested in a solution that's more cost effective or faster or drives better velocity, whatever it is. I think those workshops start to try and join two strands who want to join but struggle to join. And so we've tried to like really plug in there. So efficiency to me is about trying to really laser focus in on an area and prove out that it works. And then over time, then add on additional layers to that in a framework-based approach.
Yeah, fantastic learnings. And I think that what I'm hearing and we're just at times we're going to start focusing on the key takeaways. But at the end of the day, what I find always surprising, as marketeers, we have to be storytellers. And I think a lot of times we are failing at creating that story that aligns, like you mentioned, Greg, that those two teams of sales and marketing around that story. So I think one aspect is really to get our story straight, that we understand what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, then the outcomes, then the unit economics. If we only try to look at it through an economic lens or an outcomes lens and not understand the unifying story, right? It's going to be much harder to defend it because we used to tell a different story 10, 15 years ago, right? It was a lead-based story. We said, look, all you need in life is leads. everything should be measured around the CPL. That is the be all end all of all the metrics. And we're now at a point where we create a new story. We need to create a story that people actually believe in and buy into, and then fill it with substance and connect it to reality, right? To be able to use all those signals that we have, all those data points. And it's a more complex story, right? And like, this is an open question to you both. We are now at a point where the stories are more complex. Like you mentioned, it's a combination of a darker funnel, more touch points, less attention. So it is becoming a harder story to tell. So with that, I want to ask you the key learnings and takeaways that you have from your own journeys in recent years, months, around this transition and into these hybrid models. So let me start with you, Hillel. From your perspective, what are the, let's say, three biggest things that you took away from that transition that you've gone through?
So first, I think, as I mentioned earlier, that to start off small, not trying to change a whole organization, it's impossible. You need to be focused on something that's smaller to show good results, and use it as a case to expand it more. I think this is the first thing. The second is, and this is to the point of using, for example, a content syndication. So CPL is, at the end of the day, you're still being measured by the cost per opportunity, cost per lead. And if the CPL is really high on specific channels, such as LinkedIn, let's try to shift more budget to get quality leads from other places. So, so for example, leads that came from Infuse were even more nurtured and even qualified than leads that we created in other platforms. So it's not only that the prices were fair, also the value and the quality was higher. So this is another takeaway that on that, and I think the type of the content that you need to create. So we saw that webinars worked amazing, and we tried to create a webinar plan that, although it was a small segment, at least once a month, a dedicated webinar only for this segment, and we saw good results over there. So the type of content that is suitable for based on the stage, super important. And this is of course one example, but at the end of the day, and this is relates also to SEO, it's a lot of that starts and ends on the content. When you have a good content and a content strategy, you know how to emphasize it, then most likely you're going to see some good results from your campaign.
So start small. There is an importance of leads. So even in an ABM orientation, leads do have a purpose, right? These are people that we can approach, we can get their consent. So there is a value to leads, and not all leads are created equal, right? So there has to be a deeper understanding of the worth of a lead and what we're preparing to spend for it. And like you said, we can talk about ABM all we want, but leadership is going to look at CPLs and going to say, this is not sustainable. We have to pivot, right? So instead of maybe waiting for that to come, be ready with those answers of why those costs are there. Can we justify them? And like you said, if we cannot justify them, we have to find other sources. And to connect that, you said it has to rely on a robust, valuable content infrastructure. It cannot exist in vacuum. I mean, those are very much intertwined. If I have great content and can generate great engagement, more people will be willing to go to our webinars, will be willing to sign up, to download, right? So you cannot disconnect those investments. So they're very much coupled. Fantastic takeaway. Greg, what are your kind of three learnings working with either in Infuse or with Infuse customers?
Yeah, I'll try to stick to three. It might be like five, actually, but
Go for it.
I think what's interesting is the importance of having open dialogue. So open dialogue, I think, across internal teams, with your partners, whether those are partners that are vendors, running programs or agencies or technology. I think sometimes the reliance on marketers is they take it on themselves to solve all of the problems. And sometimes, actually opening up the problem to a few different parties is the best way of getting to the right sort of solution. So that's one thing I would say. I think that's really important. That's what partnership is ultimately, like, regardless of how it's defined. I think, what I love about the Checkpoint story and what, Hilal so well articulated is, don't be afraid to pivot. I think that's really important. And as part and parcel of that, there's a larger learning on, being really laser focused on something really specific and trying to prove that thing out, particularly when you've got, the eyes of leadership and whatnot on you. And that sort of, again, I suppose, calls out this idea that certainly we preach is probably a too strong a word, but what we like to say is that, there is that layer of BAU, and there's a process to hit metrics based on what has worked. I think if you only rely on BAU, you're going to be static, and at some point in time, something's going to stop working as well.
Right.
Whether that's a competitor comes in and crushes your product set, or like performance of a particular channel and market decreases because of market pressures, it's really important to have that innovation layer, and ultimately like to try and test things out in a way that your innovation layer starts to roll into BAU. And so like it's kind of like when you build new products and whatnot as well, is like you sort of MVP
Iteration.
it.
You have to
Exactly
iterate.
that. Beta test it and then kind of
Mhm.
roll it into BAU. But you've got to have those two layers. I think that
Mhm.
is a really key thing. If you can get that right, I think, you as a marketing team, a go-to-market team and in a business can only progress in the best possible way.
Fantastic. Well, folks, I know we're at time. I really appreciate you guys spending the time and sharing those insights and learnings from, I think, a really open and transparent conversation and perspective. So, like we've seen, it's not all, rosy. A lot of challenges, going to be a lot of hiccups. Some of them completely out of our control. We can do everything right, but then there's a black swan event, some leadership change, or something happens. Um, but we want to stay our course. We believe that there is a better way to do go to market, and I think what you shared here has some really good insights. Is how to be not just effective with ABM motions, but also cost efficient, and not, I think, be afraid of these conversations. I think sometimes marketers feel like outgunned when they go into these conversations with financial leaders. They feel like they don't have the tools.
Right.
They need to build that competency of being able to defend those spends, why they are, in a framing of a story. And I think that's our biggest weapon, right? To be able to tell a story. That's what we do all day, every day. We just need to tell it also internally and get the internal buy-in as well.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right. So again, thank you all so much for joining me. It was a pleasure, and wish you all best of luck.